Of course, we have the mechanic. Fantastic find is the strongest decoder preventer from decoding 2 cipher machines. Mechanic will get out of the game if she...
The mechanic used to be one of, if not the most, favorite character in Identity V, especially in pro play. But in recent years, she slowly faded out of the competitive scene, as well as for the general player base. We will go through the history of the mechanic, changes that she received for her to go from the perma-pig ban survivor to a character that no one plays nor cares about, as well as for the analysis on the reasons on why NetEase implemented the changes that they did. Disclaimer, this video was solely based on the information available at this current time. Statistics can change at any moment. Furthermore, this video was not intended to attack or make fun of the character nor their players. Looking at her such high numbers for her traits upon her first release, she used to have a whopping 35% increased decoding speed, as well as her being able to boost the entire team's decoding speed by 8%. Just these 2 traits already made her into the overpowered decoding monster that NetEase had created. As well as the fact that even when the doll decodes, it does not lose any controller durability, unless the mechanic is actively controlling it, which most of the time they don't do it for long. Furthermore, the doll has half of the depletion rate when the mechanic is the user, compared to other survivors, but at the time, the doll only had a normal decoding speed, with the downside of 45% decrease in decoding and gate opening speed, stacking twice when people are hurt, and a 30% slower voting speed. The pros easily outweigh the cons from her kit in this moment, and it's not even close. You have a crazy decoding speed, plus you can still control the bot even when you're incapacitated, which means it doesn't even matter if you get chased. The hunters also didn't have that good of a camping potential from this time, plus always having a coordinator or a mercenary, and with double, sometimes even triple tide turners in your team, so it's very easy to finish the entire cipher even if you were to die very quickly. On September 13th, 2018, the mechanic was further adjusted to become even more overpowered than she already is, buffing the bot's decoding speed from a normal speed to 125%. Although the team-wide 8% decoding speed that she had is now nerfed to only 3%, it is still a huge buff for her individually, since the bot still doesn't lose any durability unless controlled. Which means that now the bot can decode even more ciphers in a faster pace while using up same amount if not less of the durability. It is insanely busted considering the bot's ability to finish all 5 ciphers by itself in a small map if it doesn't get chased. Plus, the hunter didn't have that much time to chase around a bot for it to only lose half of its durability, for it to still decode 4 ciphers with the remaining half, while having normal voting speed and being hard to chase. It was simply a lose-lose situation for the hunter, because if you don't chase it, then it can finish all 5 ciphers by itself. But if you do happen to chase it, the other survivors can decode so much while wasting so much effort just to kill the bot, and for it to only lose about half of its durability. Back then, accelerated decoding wasn't a thing yet. Raw decoding speed matters more than solely for the accelerated decoding times like nowadays. Back then, if the hunter doesn't find the mechanic, it is 4 ciphers being decoded at once, and the person can still kite for long. If the hunter does find the mechanic, it will still be 4 ciphers being decoded at once, and stalling out for 1 more with tight turners and the forwards harassing. It was simply not a good time for hunters because of the overpowered mechanic's existence. On January 17th, 2019, the mechanic finally received her first real nerf. The mechanic's decoding speed bonus is now decreased from 135% to 125%. This first seemed like a decent nerf, until you realize her entire identity is her bot and not actually herself. As long as the bot exists with such high decoding speed plus such high durability, it is still 4 ciphers being decoded all at once and all the problems above stay the same. But the disaster for the mechanic has yet to come. Her strength just goes down from here. On April 30th, 2020, NetEase finally realized that the problem was with the bot and not her main all along, and gave the bot a substantial nerf, making the doll lose durability if it's decoding, even when it's not being controlled. This fixes the problem of one controller being able to decode all 5 ciphers by itself, and changed so that now it can usually only decode 2 ciphers max. Plus, fixing the issue that the mechanic had usually been able to keep the controller for the entirety of the match, but it is still a big deal nonetheless. Second nerf in the same patch, instead of 50% decreased depletion rate, it is changed to a 33% decreased depletion rate. It is certainly a big change, but not enough to shake the overtuned state of the mechanic. In Call of Abyss 4, the mechanic is still being pick banned decently much despite the nerfs from earlier years, but she is mostly only picked in second round because of the Dream Witch's existence, which is the only hunter keeping her in check. But in second rounds, Dream Witch would just get banned from the survivor side, and if the hunter dares to not ban the mechanic, she will always be picked. Now this is the problem, because if they don't ban the mechanic, then mechanic basically counters every other hunter at the time, so there is no any other counterplay to her existence. She was hit with a nerf shortly after, and 2 more later on in the same year. On May 13, 2021, the mechanic's base decoding speed had been changed from 125% to 110%. Her decoding speed reduction from damaged teammates would go from a 45% per teammate to a 35% per teammate, stacking twice. This was a net nerf since she can't do much of the cipher while the hunter is taking their time trying to find her, and have even less decoding speed if someone is hurt, decoding less in any situation compared to before, but she still decodes faster than Mercenary and such while still having the bot. Her only weakness when it comes to decoding speeds that were made to limit her potential still did not affect too much. Later on that year, on December 2nd, 2021, she received yet another nerf to her bot's decoding speed from 125 to 110%, and removing the team-wide decoding speed buff of 3%. And yes, she still had that, but now it's non-existent. This was certainly enough to make her nearly balanced against most hunters. In the Call of Abyss 5 event, which is arguably the last Call of Abyss event that she will shine as of now, she was only picked against the Geisha meta, which she is one of the pursuing type hunters that the mechanic is good against. But same as the year before, she only exists when the Dream Witch is kept away. After this Call of Abyss, the biggest game changer for her has come into effect. The area selection system is implemented into the game. It was originally designed to remove the randomness when it comes to hunters finding survivors, but this also directly affected the performance of more fragile decoding characters, such as the mechanic. Instead of being a gamble for hunters to not find you, or a very good character at keeping ties due to her ability to decode even when chased, which shows a lose-lose situation for the hunter that they used to have. Now this change means that when she is picked a lot of the times, her only potential is nothing but a tie. But don't get me wrong, she is still perfect at getting ties. This only means it lowers the chance for the survivors to win, but it also lowers the chance to lose, since now the hunter can and will come for her. Then now, your team's highest limits has been dragged down by her, while safer options who still have decent decoding speed and higher limit exist, such as the couple, patient and psychologist. The mechanic slowly falling out of the meta since she isn't the way anymore, although basically always having a tie is somewhat of a good thing, but instead of her, using other normal decoding survivors can push for higher limits while having equally if not better utility for the team. With the mechanic having slow voting, only 10% decoding increase. Even if she had a bot, it is still not enough to fill out the gap of her bad kiting potential and how she will nearly always be targeted. And even if she wasn't to be targeted, people getting hurt will still make her decoding speed for her main body to be so low, and basically becoming non-existent once 2 people gets hurt, which is always the case if they try to push for wins by saving. It simply wasn't worth it. In the Call of Abyss 6th Grand Finals, mechanic is no longer the number one pick in every situation anymore. She is only pick banned from time to time, affected by the meta at the time. She slowly fades out caused by the competition of other survivors, and the weaknesses when there are better alternatives. Time quickly comes forward to Call of Abyss 7. Here comes the very last straw for the mechanic's existence in Call of Abyss. Her bot's decoding speed is now nerfed from 110% to 100%. even though her kiting potential had been buffed in between Koa 6 and 7. But her kiting potential isn't what makes people pick her. Making her a tiny bit better at kiting when she still can't kite that well doesn't help with anything. But this decoding speed nerf ultimately made her a not worth it at all character to be picked, specifically in pro play, when she only brings so much to the table while exposing much more risk of her being chased early and just dragged down the limits downwards. In Call of Abyss 7, compared to the years before, her pick ban rate declines significantly. Even when she is picked, she is just targeted by the hunter and quickly downed. Personally, I think the only reason that she would be picked or banned is her ability to force ties. Otherwise, there just isn't enough reasons to pick her over most other survivors.
Mechanic is gearing for that tie, and just to kind of defend this lineup, that's all they want, really.
Okay, back to the video. Composer, prisoner, etc. are also good alternatives in place of a decoder. But in this case, once she is chased early, she will be eliminated long before the cipher could even be primed. Plus, most harassers being out of the meta at this moment create even less of a chance of her being able to survive until the endgame. Plus, her bringing no team utility besides decoding, while most other normal decoding survivors do have some sort of utility or a very high kite potential. As to June 2024, the doll even loses 10% of the decoding speed if the mechanic isn't actively controlling it, but gains 10% when it is controlled, although this is nowhere near enough for compensation. Anyway, this is the history of the mechanics for over the years.